Hello. The takeaway message from this talk is that as long as we keep putting more wind power into the electric system, your power bills will get bigger and your lights are more likely to go out. This will be the situation for a long time to come until we have mass storage to save power when the wind is high, to use it when it's low. So just think about that. You may not have 7 minutes to hear the rest of this talk, but take away this thought. Consider the situation when the peak of demand for power coincides with a low spot in the supply of wind. Put those two things together and see what you get. And it could happen in Victoria and South Australia come summer. The Marketing Authority has warned that a dangerous situation is approaching, so just let's see what happens. Now listen up for the story about peak demands in power and the troughs in supply of wind. It's all about peaks and troughs. First of all, consider the demand. We're using a measure of gigawatts. The more familiar thing is the kilowatts on your household bill, but we're talking about very large amounts of power. Looking at this display, you can see that the demand creeps up towards the top around 26 gigawatts, and on this particular day it was 24. It was low in the middle of the night, rising to breakfast time, and rising to the highest point in the evening when people come home and have dinner. In the winter they put on their heaters, in the summer they put on the air conditioners. So the really important peak is at the coldest times and the hottest times. And of course we're approaching a hot time when the demand is quite likely to go up towards 28 gigawatts, well beyond the point that's providing right now. So now let's consider the supply of power to meet that demand. Looking at this chart in pretty colours, you can see that the foundation of the system is the hydrocarbons or the fossil fuels, black coal, brown coal and gas. Then there's a layer of hydro, that's blue for water. Above that there's a band of green for wind. That tends to fluctuate a great deal. It doesn't fluctuate a real lot in this particular display, but you'll find out later that it can sometimes be quite thick and sometimes it can be very, very thin. At the top we have red for solar, and that of course is there in the day and not there at night, and it's not there on cloudy days. So the reliable supply comes from the hydrocarbons and the hydro. And these reliable suppliers can just about keep up most of the time, because most of the time the demand is well short of 28 gigawatts. But as the load approaches that point, we encounter the phenomena of load shedding and blackouts. And so as the demand creeps up into a danger area, the market operator undertakes managed load shedding. They phone heavy users of power and instruct them to cut back. They have to be compensated for their loss in production, and that compensation ends up in your power bills. If the load shedding is too little and too late, the system will collapse in part and blackouts occur, as in South Australia in 2016. Now a crunch is coming in the summer. The market operator has warned that there is a danger of crisis in power in Victoria in the summer. There is not enough reliable power to reach that peak. What if we provide more solar power and wind? Surely that is the way to go. So let's look at what happens if we beef up the supply of solar and wind. Well, as far as the peak in the demand is concerned, you can forget about solar because the sun has gone down before that time of the evening when it's most wanted. What about wind? We do have 5 gigawatts of wind power installed and 15 or 20 more on the way. And that sounds very reassuring to think of 25 gigawatts of power put in on top of the 25 or 26 or so of reliable energy we've got right now. It looks as though that we are home free. But now, contemplate the low points in the supply of wind. Now look at this chart, which shows you how the supply of power from the wind goes up and down over a 3-month period. On the record, the lowest level of supply was 2.7% from all of the wind farms of southeastern Australia. 2.7%. 29 days of that year, the supply was less than 10%. So just using a figure of 5%, in case you think 2.7 is too drastic and it'll never happen again, just calculate what 25 gigawatts gives you at 5%. Well, the answer is 1.25 gigawatts. So do you really think that that tiny amount of power is going to save us as the supply and as the demand creeps toward 28 gigawatts and our reliable suppliers are not making the grade? So that'll occur dinner time in a heat wave, dinner time in very cold weather. So the reliable suppliers are cranking out something towards 28, but this massive supply of wind farms is contributing 1.25 gigawatts. To survive in this situation, there'll need to be desperate load shedding and other very expensive expedients like massed fleets of diesel generators. That might keep the lights on, but what about the cost? We seem to be committed to installing 2 power systems. We've got one already based on reliable power, and we seem to be determined to put in another system based on solar and wind. And we're told that the new system is going to be very cheap. But you need to see the calculations including the cost of the subsidies and the cost of the hundreds of kilometres of poles and wires to take that market from the farm to your power point. We need both of our systems. We need the reliable suppliers, we need the coal stations for the foreseeable future. There's no way we can get cheaper power without them. There's no way we can get reliable power without them. We have to keep the coal fires burning. So, talk to your local member, talk to the candidates that you're standing for the next election, and ask them politely but firmly what are they going to do, what are their plans to maintain our existing coal-fired power stations as long as they're needed, to keep on the lights and to control the cost of power. Thank you.